続きまして、QED-C エグゼクティブディレクターのセリア・メルツバッハ博士からご講演をいただきます。
Konnichiwa. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you today. My name is Celia Merzbacher. I'm Executive Director of the Quantum Economic Development Consortium. And I was asked to share with you some thoughts from the industry perspective. I wear two hats, at least, with regard to that. I'm the director of an industry-driven association. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a moment. And I also am part of the founding membership of the International Council on Quantum Industry Associations that was mentioned already. And I just want to put some information about that as well in my remarks. So thank you very much to G-QuAT and Q-STAR for inviting me here today. About QED-C, we're an organization that was established by the US government. However, I want to emphasize I'm not part of government. I am representing the private sector. We're an industry-driven consortium of stakeholders. And the Congress in 2018 passed an act, the National Quantum Initiative Act, calling upon the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST, in our Department of Commerce to establish this consortium. So it's a new kind of organization for the government to create. At the time, they were planning a big new investment on the government side in quantum science and technology, at the same time that already there was quite a lot of activity going on in the private sector. And so QED-C sits at the intersection between the government and the private sector and helps to share information both ways to inform what's going on and the decisions that are made. So we were launched in 2018, and since then we have grown to almost 250 non-government member organizations. The mission of this association is to grow the quantum economy. That's easy to say. There's a lot to do in order to achieve this mission. Everything from identifying technology gaps, identifying use cases, identifying standards that are needed and workforce requirements, and helping to provide input to policymakers so that they make the decisions that are going to help move forward the technology from the laboratory to practical application as quickly as possible. Increasingly, the economy and the ecosystem is global. But I really like to point out that quantum was born global. It's been now 100 years since the science was first sort of shared with the world. And it's been a global activity ever since. So QED-C sees itself as being perhaps US-centered, but really we're the voice of the global quantum industry, and I'll share a little bit more about that. So today we accept membership in QED-C from 38 different countries. It's a whitelist, if you will, of places from which we will accept applications for membership. We have a process for reviewing those applications, and today we have members from about 20 countries around the world. And 1/3 of our corporate members are based or headquartered outside the US. So we're increasingly a global organization. As part of our responsibility for being the voice of this industry, this emerging and growing industry, this year we published the first State of the Global Quantum Industry. It's easy to find on our website under publications. It's presented in an infographic sort of way that's, I think, easy for people to understand. The purpose of this was to demonstrate and to show that quantum is real today. The economy is not all 30 years in the future. Sometimes there's a belief, I think, on the part of some who aren't as familiar with the technology as we are, that it's going to be amazing, but it's a long way in the future. And so our report was intended to show that there's an economy today, and we will over time keep publishing and updating this report so that we can watch it grow. So some of the measures of economic activity are, of course, revenues and workforce and intellectual property and patents and so on. And all of that is presented in this very concise report. And I'll just share with you a few of the details, but I encourage you to look at the whole report online. So one of the questions was, well, how many companies are there and where are they located? And we had to separate companies that we referred to as pure play quantum companies, companies like Quantinuum and others, and those that are what we call partial play. And those might be a company that sells lasers into quantum system developers, but also into other sectors as well. And so there are many more partial play companies than pure play, and they're distributed, as you can see, all around the world. The workforce, similarly, is global, and we tracked both the number of openings, the job advertisements by looking online, and we tried to estimate the number of workers. Now, these numbers may not be accurate. They're the best of our ability, and we use a methodology that we feel is reliable and that we can repeat in the future, so we can at least track the growth going forward. And you can see here, year over year, there's been growth. It's slowed a little bit, but I think it's actually picking up. And we have both what we call internship openings and full-time job openings that we track. We also report the public and private investment, and there are many who track public investment in particular. That's been growing, and in 2024 alone, the public commitments grew by more than $3 billion US. And the private investment, which we represent by venture capital deal flow, is also picked up after a dip in 2023. It's harder to estimate what a company like IBM is spending, so we don't try to estimate that. But this is a metric that we feel is a good measure, and just in the recent news, I think we've all seen quite a large number of announcements about new deals, so I expect this will go up in 2025. Another report data point that we track is revenue, and we've been doing a survey of the industry for 5 years now of the market or the sales and revenue in quantum computing, and each year it's gone up by roughly 25 to 27%. And in fact, if you look at the bars, you'll see that the actual revenues are greater than the anticipated revenues from the year before each year. So even the industry has been underestimating the growth in this sector. Now, I will point out that these are revenues and they're growing, and that's wonderful. Most of these companies, maybe all of them, are not profitable. They're spending more than they're earning at this time, but at some point, obviously, we expect that to change as well. So some of the trends that we observe, and there's a much deeper list of findings from our survey that you can find on our website. Revenues are expected to continue to grow. We ask each year, what were your revenues this year and what do you expect them to be? We also ask a question about access to quantum computing resources on the cloud or on premises. And while on premises has actually been creeping up, it's still predominantly expected to be accessed on the cloud. And the most promising end user sectors, there's been much discussion today about use cases, are chemicals, R&D, and pharmaceutical industries. And then we ask a question, this is also top of mind, when will I have it? And in answer to the question, when will a utility scale quantum computer be available? About half say within 5 years, but 1/3 say more than 5 years. So there's a range of opinions there. We did for the first time a similar survey on quantum sensing revenues, and the growth in that area is expected to be similar. Since this is the first year, we only have one set of numbers, but the numbers are about 1/3 what they are in quantum computing. So it's a smaller market, but it's growing quite strongly, or is expected to, over the next few years. The the sectors that are going to likely be the first to adopt quantum sensing applications are aerospace and life sciences, according to the survey. So the ICQIA represents 4 industry associations: Q-STAR, QED-C, QUIC, and KIC, Quantum Industry Canada, and the Quantum Industry Association of Europe. And the purpose of this organization is to support the growth of a trusted, open, and globally connected quantum industry. So we're all working sort of in parallel, and we recognize that we have common needs and goals, and what's good for the industry in one region or country is really going to be good for all. And so we're identifying those barriers that can be removed to growing the quantum economy worldwide. So I'll just finish with a couple of slides on where I see the quantum industry today. I showed you the data, and a little bit about where I think we can go and how we can get there faster. So the quantum industry today is still early stage. I think we all appreciate that. And the advantage of quantum technology needs to be validated. No customer is going to buy a quantum solution if it doesn't do something useful. So today, we're in that stage, and markets are still small. So I've sort of represented that with the chicken and the egg. But I think there's an appreciation for how large the potential is and the need to focus what that looks like. I will caution, however, there's been a sort of lot of attention on we've got to find these use cases, and we do. That's going to be the pull to bring the technology out of the developer and into application. But as someone like Steve Jobs often said, the customer doesn't always know what they need. We're inventing the future. And so there's a push as well. And I think we really need to remember that as we're working on this technology. It is very globally distributed. And so there are challenges and opportunities because of that. It's a technology that's critical and emerging. It's seen by nations as important to national security and to economic security. And that sort of dual nature poses some real challenges as well. And I think it's important from the industry point of view to remind that at the same time you're protecting, you want to remember the promote as well. So what does it take to run faster? Well, we do need to develop the pull, the business use cases, and that's going to unleash customers. In the survey, you may recall that the use cases, number 2 was R&D, science, using this technology for research. I happen to think that's going to be use case number 1, that scientists, and I used to be one, will very quickly take a new tool and use it to do something interesting to them. They're extremely agile. And when they do that, they make discoveries. And so that then leads to the ability to apply the technology to chemicals and other fields. We want to lower the barriers to doing business with allies. This is really important, and this is, I think, something that I'm sort of here to communicate. We want to make it easy to access markets and customers, to access suppliers around the world. The best suppliers may not be in your country, to access talent and to access capital. And I know there are a lot of conversations taking place this week around how to remove these kinds of barriers. We want to work with others who follow the rule of law and observe international norms and are willing to play on a level playing field. And finally, there was some mention earlier of the need for standards, and that's absolutely essential as the technology continues to develop. You don't want to be premature and squelch innovation or kill innovation in one area too early. So that's something that needs to be done with consideration. So my sort of takeaway messages are that quantum, I believe, is diverse. It's diverse in terms of its applications, in terms of the disciplines and the expertise that we need in order to realize it. It's global in its reach, and as I hope I convinced you, it's growing. So thank you very much, and congratulations to G-QuAT, and I look forward to talking to some of you later this afternoon. Thank you.
セリア・メルツバッハ様、ありがとうございました。